And that's, I guess that's why I don't read horror either, because horror is usually bad stuff happening to good people, and I don't love that. I just don't love that.
It's funny because I like watching horror type movies, but I didn't like the turn it took probably in the late 80s, early 90s, where
slashers?
Not even just slashers, but they're fine. The good guys got through, and then the last scene is them getting slashed.
Right.
It's like,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, come on now.
Yeah, we thought they escaped, but nope.
No, they didn't.
The twist. It had to put the twist in and turn the knife.
But then that became cliched to the point where nobody ever wins, and I just no, I don't want to watch that.
Sounds like you like a little ray
I don't
of
want to
hope.
read. I
at the
like
end
a
of
little
your-
ray of hope at the
Yeah,
end. I happen to be a firm believer in people having the ability to choose good. Doesn't mean people are all good. We're never all good. Nobody's a saint.
Right.
But I think in the end,
Yeah, not even the saints were we're really saints.
read
most
some
of
of
them.
those. Yeah.
Just
Read the Confessions of St. Augustine if you want some interesting stuff.
I'm quite aware.
But anyway, I happen to think that the character of... Now, maybe I'm going way out on a limb. Both American self-myth. That's very much a self-myth. And even just Western civilization self-myth is the triumph of good. That's not really true in Middle Eastern or Far Eastern, particularly Japanese, self-myth. But if you look at most Western literature going back to the Iliad, going back to the Song of Roland, it is the triumph of good.
And the comeuppance of bad. Or, not so good.
And I that is so inculcated, I think, in our view of the world and of ourselves, that in the end, that's what's going to happen.
I like your thinking. I'm going to go with that too. So you gave us a little update on your writing.
Yes, it's gone quite well. I'm up to about 50,000 words now.
Nice.
I'm about halfway through the series of events that I want to cover. And I got inspired. I wrote all this stuff that was mostly character-based. And so I've got one character who is just spiraling down out of control because he's a traitor and he can't handle it.
Oh.
And so he starts out, yes, I'll have a drink with the guy who's suborning him. And now he's drinking himself into a stupor every night. And he's not doing his job well. And his continued motivation for doing the traitorous things he's doing is dependent on doing that job. I've got my other character who has PTSD, being forced back into violence.
Good,
And
you're pushing their buttons. Ooh.
And that's
like
causing suffering on his part.
Yes, be cruel to your characters.
I've got my prim and proper Quaker wife who is very taken with the pirate. Not in a... She's very level-headed. It's not in a romantic way.
Really fun.
But this is a very intriguing man. This is the man who has been called, and this is a direct quote, the most dangerous man in England. He doesn't seem dangerous to me. He's just intriguing. But in the conventions of the time, she can't really meet with him alone.
Right.
And that was a big thing. I had to get them together at a reception that is actually a true event. There's no documentation that she actually went to it.
But
But
who's to know?
I have her going. Her husband is out of town, that's also a thing. That's fun. So she goes with the vice consul. She's the consul's wife. And they take along a chaperone, her second cousin, who's nursemaid to her children. But they lose her very quickly. She goes over to the food tables and is never seen again for the rest of the night.
Nice way to get rid of her.
And then they go and meet Raphael Semmes, who is eventually the captain of the CSS Alabama and is a very flamboyant character by all accounts. And she's just very taken with this guy.
Nice.
And now she has to contrive ways to encounter him again.
Be in his company.
And it's kind of an ambivalent thing. She wants to...
Because she's fascinated by him.
She's fascinated by him, but she also sees herself as... She's the one who's kind of pushing this shadow war that's going on. So the setup is, and this is all documented, a reception is given for Raphael Semmes, who is eventually the captain of the Alabama, but who was also captain of a ship called the Sumter that wreaked havoc in the Caribbean on Union shipping, but then was damaged, put into Gibraltar, and was no longer seaworthy. So Semmes and his officers came to London and eventually to Liverpool, and they threw a reception for him. The Confederates there. And they invited all of the consulate officers, all the diplomats in Liverpool, so Italy and Germany, and they invited the Union consulate. And so there's this whole discussion between Emmeline, the wife of the consul and his vice consul, Henry Wilding. What should we do about this invitation? If we go, we're walking into our enemy's den, essentially. But if we don't go, and we're the only consulate who doesn't go, we're already unpopular in town. Right. No one likes us. And now we're going to look vindictive and standoffish. So the decision is they're going to go. That's the part that isn't documented in history, whether they actually went. Well, Dudley, the consul, has snuck off to London, unbeknownst to his enemies. He hides in the bottom. This is also documented. This is so cool. He hides in the bottom of the carriage as they go out riding. And as they go past Lime Street train station, he literally jumps out of the carriage and runs inside to buy a ticket to London so that the Confederates don't know that he's gone.
Nice.
And the word is out that he's in his sick bed with some kind of, fever or something. So his wife and the vice consul and their chaperone, the nursemaid, go to this party where they meet Semmes. And they start having this conversation that is very, fencing kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And they...
How fun.
And Semmes... So Henry Wilding goes with the campaign ribbon on his lapel instead of a flower, showing that he fought at Chapultepec. Turns out Semmes was at Chapultepec too, but on a staff position, not in combat. And immediately there's this, you fought at Chapultepec. What unit? And Henry goes, 126 Pennsylvania Rifles, 8th Infantry. They took 40% casualties in 20 minutes. Wow. Which is why Henry has the PTSD.
Right.
Almost half his unit is wiped out in a very brief time. And Semmes then sees that and recognizes a fellow warrior. And so even though they're enemies, they have this common ground. And then they go off and have these very pointed conversations like, well, what are you doing in Liverpool, Captain Semmes? I intend to fit out a fast ship and raid Union commerce. How about you? What are you doing in Liverpool?
So they're pretty
I intend
direct.
to stop you from
nice.
fitting out that ship
like
and doing exactly those things.
I want to read that now.
So
I wanted to read it before.
I had a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting to get into these characters' heads a little bit more, and their
that
downward spirals for some of them and upward spirals for others. And there's this whole blank section now that I'm at in terms of actual events where from March until almost late June 1862, there's just this kind of, yes, both sides spied on each other, but not much in any specifics.
So you get to make it up.
So I get to make it up in there.
Nice.
So that'll be fun.
Oh, sounds good. That's
So
exciting.
It's moving along.
Good. I'm glad because I know you were struggling a little bit before.
Yeah, and I, like I said, I think both Shara and then